These days, small cars don't have to mean big compromises, and I've got the best two small cars you can buy right now, the new Volkswagen Polo and the new Ford Fiesta. But which should you choose?
To help you decide which of these two cars is right for you, I'm going to critique their designs.
I think there's something a little bit fishy about the way this new Fiesta looks.
Find out how practical they are,
And get your coat stuck at the same time.
see what they're like to drive,
Thankfully, it still has that fun element,
and compare their quality.
and it just helps it feel premium.
But first of all, I'll answer the question you'll all be asking.
Let's talk about money. So this is the range-topping Vignale version of the Ford Fiesta. It costs around £21,000. This is the SEL version of the Polo with the automatic gearbox, and it's £19,500. Now, they're not actually matched for specs very well, so you want to check out like for like on our website. So if you go to CarWow, you can actually see that the starting price of the Ford Fiesta is around £13,000, but with the CarWow saving, it's just under £12,000. Whereas the Volkswagen Polo, that's just under £14,000 list price, but on CarWow, it starts from just under £12,500. Now, if I take this car, for example, I plugged in the details of it into our website and I got an offer back for £17,500, so that's a saving of £2,000. Now, as you can see, it's really important that you do your homework first when you decide on which car to buy, to see how much you're going to actually pay for them. And when you compare them spec for spec, roughly it works out that the Fiesta is ever so slightly cheaper than the Polo, but not by a big enough difference for it to count all that much.
What could make a real difference though is how the cars look.
Now at this point I should actually make some witty remark about the Volkswagen Polo's looks, but I'm struggling for inspiration. All I can really come up with is that it looks new, but not that new.
However, the new Fiesta is noticeably more different to its predecessor, especially round the back where it's a bit van-like. The front is better though, and this one reminds me of something.
I don't know what it is, but I think there's something a little bit fishy about the way this new Fiesta looks. Now, depending on which model you go for, you get a different grille. This is the range-topping Vignale, so it has like this chromey effect, which looks like several rows of teeth.
Meanwhile, the ST line has this sporty grille and the titanium this posher grille. So, the Fiesta has a slightly different face depending on how much you spend. The Polo doesn't quite have the variety of outfits as the Fiesta, but this mid-range SEL does have visual essentials, such as alloy wheels. But what about the cabin?
Now, you could argue that the interior design isn't the most exciting, and indeed it's not, but it looks smart, it's tidy, it's all very functional, and the quality is really good for a small car. So you've even got really squidgy plastics here on the lower part of the dash and on the top. But the highlight for me is the steering wheel. So the leather feels expensive. It's got a nice chunky solid feel to it as well. And that's the bit of the car you touch, and it just helps it feel premium.
There's something really attractive about the Ford too.
The interior design of this new Fiesta is just so much better than in the old car. It's interesting, and quality is pretty good as well. Now, this is a range-topping Vignale version, so you get stuff like leatherette on the dash with stitching and special purpley bits of trim and quilted leather seats. But it's all a bit unnecessary when you consider that this range-topping version costs over £20,000. Right, you don't need it. Now, titanium models and above come with this lovely 8-inch screen, and compared to the one in the old car, the old simple little infotainment system you used to get, it's a godsend.
In the front then, there's not much to choose between the two cars. They both have good driving positions and a decent quality for the price. It's easier to find your way through the Polo's infotainment system, but having the screen so high in the Fiesta means you don't have to take your eyes off the road for quite so long when you're using it. So effectively, the cars are pretty much neck and neck. But are they equally matched for rear passenger space?
If you want a small car but still need to give your friends and family a lift regularly, then look no further than the Polo, because it's surprisingly large here in the back. I mean, it really is. Even people over 6 foot should be fine. And there's some neat features as well. So look, not only have I got enough room to take my jacket off, but I have a little hook for it just there, which keeps it nicely out of the way. My only complaint is this, look. The rear windows really don't go down very far at all. Why?
Sadly, there's a lot more to complain about in the Fiesta.
The Ford Fiesta's Achilles heel has always been its practicality, and even though Ford claim to have made this car a bit more spacious than before, it's still tight here in the back, even by small car standards.
That means you should definitely choose the Polo over the Fiesta if space is most important to you. It has more room in the back, and it's more comfortable with 3 across the rear seat. It's also the one to choose if you have small children. You'll find it easy to get a child seat in through the doors, and the ISOFIX mounts aren't hidden away like they are in the Ford. When it comes to boot space too, the VW looks like it could be better than the Fiesta.
The Polo's boot is not only big for a car of this size, it's also very flexible. If you get the adjustable boot floor, look, you can raise it up and get your coat stuck at the same time.
You can also get an adjustable floor as an option in the Fiesta, but there's just much less space than you get with the Polo.
The Fiesta's boot is, well, let's just say it's only just about okay for a small car in terms of size. Yeah, if you want a large boot on your small car, you might want to look elsewhere. Not there.
In fact, the Polo's boot is almost 60 litres bigger than the Fiesta's, and the square shape makes it dead easy to pack. So overall, there's no doubt the VW is the most practical of these two cars. But how does it measure up out on the road?
It's a comfy car, it's a quiet car. It feels most like a big car for a small car. The only fly in the ointment for me is the engine in this car. So it's a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol, plenty of punch, all right economy. I'm doing 46 miles per gallon. It's just when you rev it, makes a bit of a racket and it feels a touch rough. It's the only letdown. Otherwise, yeah, this is so easy to live with. Now, I won't lie, the Polo is not the most flamboyant or fun small car, but sometimes you don't want flamboyant and fun. You just want something nice and steady and reliable, something that will do its duty day in, day out, year after year. And in that way, this Polo is a bit like our Queen, you know? It's reliable, it doesn't make a fuss, it gets on with the job, and it does its job very well. And after all, Queen Elizabeth, she's actually German. You check her family tree, you'll see.
There's a lot of German influence in the Fiesta too, not least because it's built in Cologne. And although Germans aren't usually renowned for being much fun, this Fiesta is guaranteed to put a smile on your face.
The old Fiesta's trump card was the way it drove. Now, it was a fun little car, yeah, it was reasonably comfy as well. Ford has made this one even more comfortable. They've made it quieter, they've made it easier to live with and easier to drive in town. Yet thankfully, it still has that fun element. This one's got the 1 litre turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine, and I actually prefer it than the ones in the Polo. It's just not quite so vibey, it's not quite so raucous, and this one has 140 horsepower, so it's got plenty of punch. I'm still averaging over 41 miles per gallon, which is, yeah, it's all right. So while the Ford may not be class leading in terms of practicality, looks, pricing, or its infotainment system, it is when it comes to the drive.
Now this is the point where you'd usually expect me to deliver my final verdict. But before I do that, I'd like to ask you for a favour.
Now I want to do a feel-good factor test, and I want you guys to decide the winner. So I want to see which car has the most satisfying door close sound. Is it the VW or the Ford? Let's try it on the back doors, because they often try and save money on the back doors and they're a bit more flimsy. So the VW or the Ford? Click on the pop-out banner in the top right-hand corner.